So you want to just go ahead and jump right into it? Let's, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, and we'll go from there. Sounds good?
Okay. Yeah. So good, Chris. Thank you very much for having me. So, name's Gert Christen, and I call myself an innovation strategist. I've been back here in San Francisco for 4.5 years now. I came to help build up a smart city innovation center for the city of San Francisco, which introduced me to the fascinating topic of autonomous vehicles and how hopefully they can make our lives better. And so the first 1.5 years, that's what I mostly thought about and worked about. But background is I'm originally from Switzerland. Spent quite a few years at Nokia. Ended up founding and creating and running then the business of the first app stores ever, I guess. Any company ever opened in telecoms, and that was a fascinating ride to figure out all the technical problems, commercial problems, legal problems. That was great. Then I, after a few years, went back to Switzerland and ended up building startup incubators. So that's apparently one thing that I do. I build innovation programs and incubators, and that's what I came back to San Francisco for. Now I am a entrepreneur in residence at Mark 49, a design thinking consultancy. We help very large companies build new ventures and start new businesses and start a corporate venture practice. And I'm an innovation. I teach at UC Berkeley, entrepreneurship, of course. What else? And
nice.
Then I try to think about innovation and the future. And that's how, Chris, you and I met.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Awesome. So I think the one thing that you said there that we hadn't talked about before was design thinking. And I think design thinking is one of those things that seems to have many definitions. What's your definition of design thinking?
I think it is, for me, it's very simple. Design thinking was an evolution. It's a result of an evolution. Is everything thinking customer centricity. If lean startup was the way how you build a startup company and went about creating your first product, design thinking is what happens before. It's before, I think it was called ideation or something like that. So it's all about customer centricity. And what impressed me, and I think what the difference is to how we used to think about, oh, we need a new problem, we need a new product, or we need a solution to this particular problem, is the key difference is you really try to develop empathy for the problem and the people experiencing this problem, and you really try to experience this yourself as if it was your problem. And to me, that's really all about it. And then, formally, there are 5 steps to that design thinking that anybody can go through. But it's this thing, it's so plain, it sounds so plain and simple. Put yourselves into the shoes of the person you're trying to solve for. But how many products and how many businesses have you seen where, in the end, they come out with a product and the first time a customer sees it and nobody wants it?
Yeah.
What a waste.
Well, you're right. I mean, that's exactly what happens.
And design thinking is, stops that right away.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like Christensen's jobs to be done theory too, because if you think about jobs to be done, it's all about what does the customer want to complete? What's the task they need to complete? And a lot of times companies just think about what we do, like what I am or my identity, as opposed to what the customer wants. So for example, a bank would think, oh, I'm a bank. And the customer doesn't really want a bank. They want to be able to, have a good job and save some money. So, they don't care about banking per se. They care about having a good job and saving some money, or buying a house, right? I mean, the bank might say, we provide mortgages, but I don't think the customer cares about mortgages. They care about owning a home. So I think that
I have a nice home for my family. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's a disconnect between what the company is providing and what the customer's providing. But
Completely. So it's
I gotta.
just shifting that one perspective. And I know, and there are plenty of, I love these photos that you can find on the internet where it's a photo of, this was the design and this is the user experience. Have you seen these? The
Yeah.
paths, and people keep taking the shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
That's, it wouldn't happen if somebody just went there and stood there for half a day and watched.
Yeah,
How people
that's right.
actually experience this, whatever the problem is.
So that leads me to another thing. It's like, do you feel, so this is a question I've had in my head for a long time, is that some people think innovation is sort of taking the customer's desires and sort of making them real. And other people think innovation is just sort of something that springs out that the customer's not really aware that they know about. So what do you think of those, like opposite views of innovation?
I'm not so sure. I don't care which approach you take, as long as you take the customer really, really, really serious. Then I think it is, I often think every team or every group of people or every company has its kind of its own living organism, and so whatever works, So as long as you follow a couple of the ground rules, whichever way you go, you will reach the end point regardless if you just observe some of the ground rules. So and in my work, I've seen that sometimes solutions jump out very quickly because it's all of a sudden it seems obvious, and other times it might take years. It might take years to get to a solution, or it might be too early. So, what Steve Jobs or always said, or Henry Ford, that kind of a very, very used slogan that, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses, something like that,
Yeah.
he said. So he really, and Steve Jobs
that's
said
not
same,
innovative.
Huh?
That's not really innovation, right? I mean, if you're just providing a faster horse because that's what customers want. So that's
true, but this is the risk. If you ask people, they only see so far in their horizon, and so it takes. I think it takes really people who are specially trained or especially sensitive to really see beyond that, and then you have people who kind of have the guts to make these leaps and invent new categories. I think that is very, very hard. And Steve Jobs obviously was one who was able to do that. I'm not. My crystal ball doesn't go that far into the future.
Well, I mean, I read somewhere that there was very little customer feedback pulled into, or not, like zero customer feedback pulled into the iPhone when the iPhone was first being developed. And it became sort of like a smash hit. Same with Twitter. Twitter became a smash hit, but it was basically a skunkworks project. So, I mean, can you point to any products and services that became huge hits after like using design thinking to generate them, or bringing the customer into the mix?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I could do that. I can, to reverse it, I can point to plenty of product failures and millions and millions spent on products that proved to be useless. So maybe that is the way why innovation today and new products, you must go let's not call it design thinking, but you must go the customer-centric way. And there are a couple additional reasons why I think for any startup, but also increasingly corporates, this is the way to do it. And they have to do with one simple reason. This is the way that your investors think today. This is the way that the talents that you will need to create this company and grow this company, this is how they are trained. Agile and Scrum is the only project management methodology that's being taught anymore. So if you do something else, you you won't get the talents, or you will have to retrain them, which seems a waste of money. And in every accelerator program, you know, follows this agile, lean startup, get to a minimum viable product step. And if you can't, as a startup, if you can't show these steps, investors won't know what to do with you, because you don't fit the steps in which, the cycles in which they, or the phases in which they invest anymore. So that's why I think that, and I'm very glad actually to have seen this development over the last maybe 10 years. This is the only game now. Mm-hmm. So coming back to large corporations, why would you not go that way? Why would you still insist on your, you know, old waterfall project management and life cycle, can't even say the word anymore, software development, life cycle management.
SDLC,
yeah, exactly. Why, you know, why would you still go that way if everything points, every success and every training and every investment is done in a different way? So this is kind of, now we've gone full circle that, you know, lean startup was very new when it came out. Agile was very new when it came out, but so was Scrum when it came out. And so software engineers, you know, the weekly build, that was the idea behind Scrum. And now we do Scrum sprints for everything.
Oh yeah.
And in a way, you know, design thinking is maybe just the roof over it. That kind of, like lean startup took together a couple nice methodologies and gave them a headline, lean startup. And design thinking now adds this, you know, ruthless, customer-centric focus and developing emotions, really connecting with the problem. That's the only thing it adds.
Right.
But
right.
It's all together, they've really now matured.
Right. So let's say you are a startup founder and you have an idea. What would you say is the first step to validating that idea has legs, that you should move forward with it?
All right. Stand at talk to all your friends, your family, everybody about your problem. See if you can boil it down to a few questions that you think, that's the problem I'm solving, and then go out in the street, ask everybody in the coffee shop, ask everyone at the bus stop, ask everyone at the intersection while the light is red. Go talk to people. Talk to people. Don't do it, you know, like the example I think you made before, where in the end you come out with all proud with a product, and then you talk to people for the first time, and they say, "Oh no, that's of no use to me." You know, that's a Juicero orange juice machine. It's of no use to me.
Yeah, the Juicero was. I couldn't understand how they actually got to the point where they got investment in that thing, because they must have had some really good friends in the investment community, because I couldn't, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
I can't.
So let's say I've taken this idea and I've talked to you know, friends, relatives. I've talked to, you know, certain marketing, or I've shopped it around, and I get a lot of good feedback. Right. So everything I'm hearing is good. What's my next step then? What do I do after that?
I think now you PowerPoint. now you make a few slides, and because now you have kind of the problem solution thing, you know, which every pitch, you know, this will be your 30 seconds to get someone excited. Now you need to think, you know, to think through the rest of it. So whichever, and there's plenty of templates for that too, you know, if you take the Guy Kawasaki, 10 slides plus, you know, greeting and thank you slide, 12 slides, you know, that's a good cooking recipe to go through. So trying to describe, you know, how will this product, how will it have a business model? Where could it be sold? How many people? What do you think you could get for it? So flesh it out a little more with the goal of having something to really discuss with other people, because I think the second thing you need to do is you need to get other people excited about it. You
Mm-hmm.
need to start building a team, get some allies to build this, and get some very early feedback on the idea. And and once you have that, I think you will be able to talk intelligently about the product in 5 minutes or less, so that somebody gets it. The usual things. What's the problem? What's the solution? What's the solution? How does it exactly work? And how are you going to make money? These are the four things really that you need. And we need this because don't do it alone. I think that is another learning we've had. Nobody is the one person who can do everything themselves. Sell it and code it and deliver it and do the marketing. It's just not possible, and it will never be. The idea will never be funded by an investor because it doesn't scale that way. So now you need to get other people excited, and now you have your couple minutes to talk about it so that somebody gets it. Then I think this is the wonderful thing. Actually, I used to say, oh, you can in San Francisco, you can go at least 5 nights a week. You can go and pitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For nothing else but to get feedback and to find allies, maybe people who want to join you. Actually, with COVID, it's even better. You can pitch. Apparently, my inbox tells me you can pitch all day long online.
That's right. You just do it through Zoom.
Yeah, through Zoom. All these pitching events, instead of being able to do 1 or maximum 2 in an evening, you can probably now do 3 or 4 in a day.
Yeah.
Just think what that actually did for someone who has an idea and is trying to get feedback and allies. It makes them much more efficient, actually.
Oh yeah, it's really helped. Now, the only downside to that I've heard from a few startup founders is that they're all concerned about losing their IP. Like they think their idea is so amazing that they don't want to share it and they don't want to spread it around because they figure, oh, somebody's going to steal it. What do you think of people who say that, who think that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a valid concern if you have a technology and you want to patent something, then I think that is a concern. You can't talk to anyone unless you have them sign an NDA so that it's private. Or you can't go and pitch. But for many, and if you get to that point, I think you need a lawyer. You will need money, and so you probably already have a good chance of convincing people to join your cause. For everybody else, I think at this point, really, what are you giving away in 3 minutes? If you've thought about this for a month or 2 or 6 months or 1 year already, nobody will be able to, from a few minutes, do all the thinking, and even better than you have over weeks or months. So I think the advantage of finding allies and supporters outweigh the risk that somebody is going to, for just a few minutes, understands even better than yourself what the problem is and the potential, and is going to within a short period of time do all the work you already did, including the thinking work that went on and went into it, and actually beat you at your own project. I think that the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. If you're very concerned about this, then try to get into one of these programs, accelerate the program, or join a co-working space, maybe in the industry or the area where you are in, where you find people who also work, say, on hardware, but it's going to be hardware for something completely else. And in this sense, it's more contained.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what's your opinion on when you should start actually building as opposed to trying to capture investors?
I didn't say investors at this point. I said allies.
Okay, right.
Allies, yeah. So it's clear investors will come when you have a minimum viable product, and you can maybe show that you were actually able to sell it for money a few times, or where you can at least show that this product market fit really happened, and you have 1,000 people signed up for the waiting list for the product to be available. So I think today investors very strongly want to see that. And and I teach entrepreneurship at Berkeley, and we see that every time we have these semester long courses where students in teams create products, and then in the end they pitch, and actually they reach this semester, we just had it last month, and there were $100,000 in seed money available to the projects. Yeah. And if you don't have a working prototype, and ideally some, like I said, people signed up and said, oh, if this product is available, I will buy it. If you don't have real proof of this product market fit, it's very hard to get invested. So, so this is, you should have allies to help you build a very, very simple prototype that you can show, or maybe just a core functionality, a website that, I don't know, turns a Word document into a PDF. I'm saying something that isn't too hard, very, very simple, that people can experience your product. And that's possible. We've had 5 teams at Berkeley, the last class this spring. We've had 5 teams of 4 to 5 students each, and they only worked from January to May, and this on their idea. And they went through all the motions. They, the customer interviews, pain points, thinking of solutions, testing those, and more customer interviews, and then building some sort of working prototypes. And despite COVID and everything, every team really got there. So it's not that hard, but it's really, strip it down to something very, very, very simple.
Yeah. A lot of people say that if your first MVP isn't embarrassing, you probably waited too long to launch it. Because, I mean, I've been through this a couple of times with my own startups where, we were embarrassed, some of the other founders were so embarrassed by the product. They're like, oh, I can't release this. And I'm like, well, if you don't release it now, then we don't know if we're going to get an audience. We don't know if this is going to turn into anything. And, we made a lot of mistakes about not talking to customers, not, going out there and saying, this is what you want, because there was so much fear that, oh, someone was just going to snap up the idea and do something with it. But I think you're right. I mean, I think that the concern is overblown, right? Because if you have a really good idea and you've thought it through, then you're way ahead of anybody else who wants to build something like that. So I feel like we could flip to the corporate innovation side of things, because you've also worked with corporate innovators. And I mean, I see a lot of issues or challenges in the corporate innovation space. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the challenges you've seen in the corporate innovation space?
Yes. Red tape.
Bureaucracy, right? Red tape, it's everywhere.
Bureaucracy, yes. So there's the innovator's dilemma in the corporate innovation space, where, say, you and I work in the same corporation. I have a great idea how the product that our department, say, has been selling for very successfully for 10, 20, 30 years, how we could replace that by something even better, amazing. And I come to you as as the head of the business unit, and I say, hey, I have this great idea. I'd like to create this, like a startup. I want to create something new. And you're going to say, so you want money for this? The money is going to come from the product we sell today. And if you're successful, you're going to kill my product.
Yep.
And if the culture doesn't allow for innovation, then you'll have and if there's red tape and politics, you'll have a manager who will try to kill the idea. Because short term, it's not good for the business that he's responsible for. And if he's only measured in terms of, sales, margin, growth, he will try to kill this idea because it's not good for him to now spend some of his profit on creating a new idea that tomorrow will kill some of his revenue. Why would he
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah. So that's a really, really difficult argument to win. So how do you win an argument like that? How do you say to them, listen, I understand that, but this is necessary. We need to do this.
Yeah. So the argument there is that, don't think short term, and very, very important strategically, and in those bonus sheets and the KPIs, don't only measure short term. I once heard from the CEO of Nestle that he said that his business unit heads were measured on, it was something like 444, and it was every year they had to have, I don't know if it was 4 or 40, but let's just take this 4. You had to, every year you had to create 4 new initiatives, and over 4 years, your revenue had to come, 40% of your revenue had to come from products less than 4 years old, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So now this makes you think completely different as a business unit manager. You know that I have X years to milk a product, and then I'm expected to prepare to orderly phase this product out, and I'm expected to early enough start things to phase new products in. So now I'm giving my staff incentives. I'm having weekly brainstormings or monthly or something to say, hey, here's our portfolio, and you can go back to the old Porter portfolio theory. We have these cash cows. We know they have this many years left in them. What are we going to replace them with? And then if you think, and that's strategically, if you think of a company as a portfolio of products or a portfolio of businesses that go through a life cycle, then I think you will look at this very differently, because you will accept that if I don't replace this product with something newer, more modern, and so on, more customer centric, how my customers evolve, if I don't do it, Uber's going to solve the problem for me, or some other, Airbnb, all the disruption, Netflix is going to solve my what were they even called? My Blockbuster problem before. If I don't disrupt, if I don't think and accept the possibility that my business can be disrupted, somebody else is going to do it. I'd rather do it myself,
Yeah. But there's always this fear that because it's unknown, right? You have a known quantity, like, okay, I know I'm making X amount when I'm selling this widget. And when you're innovating, it's an unknown number of widgets, or unknown number of new widgets that you're going to sell to an unknown number of new people. And how do you build a business case for something that's never been done before?
Yeah, well, that's hard, but that's what every startup basically does. And what I would say is, you can't, of course, yes, the unknown is there until you come to the market, and and then you see if the thing flies off the shelf or the downloads go through the roof. You're never going to know. However, you thank God for agile design thinking and lean startup, because you can de-risk before you put the final push and the final ultimate resources and money behind developing the product, because this is new. This is what we've learned over the last 10-15 years. You don't have to deliver the full perfect product on day one. You can go in steps. And yes, after each step, the investment probably gets higher, but also the risk gets smaller. So actually, if you think that way, your business case and iterative business case building through steps in the development, such as lean startup and so on, is actually CFOs and controllers should really love the approach.
Right. So I've heard, and this is for both corporate and startup initiatives, how do you know when you need to pivot? I mean, how long do you give something? Like you build a product and you put it to the market, and let's say you don't get traction right away. How long do you wait for this thing to start showing traction before you realize, oh crap, I got to pivot or do something completely different? Is there like any kind of rule of thumb which tells you how long you should wait to do something different?
It's a really, really good question to which I don't know the answer. I would only two thoughts, so if I don't know something, I always try to ask myself, who would I go ask? The way you asked the question, I would go ask my marketing guy,
Mm-hmm.
to find out where in the funnel, where does it stop? Is it is it is it a conversion problem, or do actually people buy but they don't renew, or we don't get good feedback after they buy? And so I would try to narrow down where's it breaking down, because it could just be that the marketing isn't good, isn't perfect yet, and that we're not reaching the right people, or not pushing the right buttons with the messages before throwing out the whole thing. Of course, in the end, if it turns out that, well, we had a bias somewhere along the line in our interviews, and we were asking the wrong people, or always the same people, or always our friends, and always employees of the same company, then
Right.
so that's a different problem. But I think I would go ask my marketing guy. I've heard the craziest stories about pivoting. Didn't Slack
Mm-hmm.
become
Slack,
invented because of
both Slack, yeah, both Slack and Flickr are both pivots, because I know that Stuart Butterfield, I actually used to work with him at Yahoo, and Flickr was originally a game, and what happened was all the people in game were sharing photos, and they just pivoted to become Flickr. And then Slack was originally a game too, and that didn't work out. He just had this like chat mechanism on the side, and he just pivoted to become a chat service. So I don't know if it's something about Stuart specifically. So he keeps trying to build a game, and then it keeps pivoting to something else. But yeah, I mean, some of the most successful products out there are pivots. Like, for example, Twitter was originally a skunkworks project from a company called Odeo, right, which was a podcast provider. So I know that for sure, because I used to do podcasts way back when. So a lot of these disruptive products of today were actually something completely different, and then they pivoted. They were nimble enough to be able to pivot and become something, right? And something that you said earlier kind of twigged me on the how do you know if it's successful? If you've built a really good wait list or an audience ahead of time, then it should be successful out of the gate, right? So if you put something tasty out there and people are already signed up for it, the moment you put a product out there, you should get traction right away. Is that right?
Yes, you should. You should. I mean, if and hopefully you made sure you knew the price point, because that's about the only thing that that is you will only know once you can really put the product out there. Yes, I find that a simple and but fantastic way of achieving several things at the same time. One is to create buzz, as you say, because now you have these email addresses, you can send out the newsletter and product incoming and preview and you have if you have such a list of 1,000 names or whatever it is, it's fantastic to show to investors. And then third, your way to revenue should be almost instant, right? I mean, and then there's GoFundMe and Kickstarter who actually work exactly on that principle.
Well, that's right. Those are also other ways of pulling together interest to see if somebody's interested in, like, it's like pre-sales. So there's, if you think about it,
it's a good point that you say that. If your Kickstarter campaign, the question you asked before, how do you know it's not a good enough an idea? Well, probably for a Kickstarter campaign, you will know if it's not a good idea. Because if nobody signs up, even for the, for the free version or 99 cents version, then you know that no, there's not enough interest.
Mm-hmm. So you were talking earlier about the short-term thinking being the thing that was the big problem within corporations. Have you thought about, how we could get around that? Like how we could help companies think more like expand their long-term thinking?
Yeah, well, I could introduce you to my colleagues from sales at Mark 49. That's their daily life. But for large companies, these are big tankers, and it takes a long time for them to turn around, and it's always who's at the helm. So this with large established companies that have been around for a long time. They have an established culture, established ceremonies, if you want. What happens, not what's not written, but what happens anyway in the organization. And so it's culture and strategy. Strategy is you must have top management support to do something like this. But then also there's culture. There has to be a cultural change to accept this example, to pivot to not only, okay, from next quarter on, you're going to be measured only 50% on running the business, but also 50% on securing the future of the business. Okay, fine, but such a manager who's been trained and trained through his bonus sheets, the way he has to think, probably also needs a little bit of help to understand how we can think differently in the future, and give him some tools, so some training and some opportunities to experience kind of this new way of thinking should also be offered. And so this is not something that the company does overnight. It really needs a thoughtful initiative that has to be planned through to really be successful.
Yeah, and you definitely need an executive sponsor way up high who actually can has some power to do something. Because yes, in all of the situations that I've been in, where if you don't have that champion, things are not going to move forward. You really need that champion on high, because they drive things, right? Otherwise,
yes,
no cultural change.
Yeah, and it is a shift in strategy. And if we think this through a little bit further, then we realize that something incredible that could happen is that through talking, observing customers much more, we might discover completely new fields where to do business. And now it's a board decision.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been in software for the construction industry. Should we really get into the healthcare industry? But so that's not something that even one single manager or a business unit manager can decide.
Yeah. Every company that I've worked for, it's been extremely difficult to impossible to create that kind of cultural change. Have you seen any success stories of companies that have actually done it well?
Well, there's the IBM, I guess it's an old example, but Lou Gerstner was his name, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like Elephant's Dance, I think was the book. So that's a very old example. But I think they were able to do it. Cisco, in a way, was able to do it. Going from hardware more and more to software and services at the same time. Apple, we talked about Apple. I think one third is software revenue now. Really, from a hardware, from a hardware company. And some of the others, if you look more recently, the move to software as a service. Mm-hmm. All the software companies that moved to a subscription model in a way, this is a big cultural change. I have, some friends here in town who work at the one or the other company, and they explained how this was a big change to how things used to work. Both technically, some parts of their product had to be completely rewritten to become downloadable, because you don't have a fob anymore, you don't have a CD anymore, you don't have all these things anymore. On the one hand, and on the other hand is before, people would buy your CD with the software on it, and then you'd be good for a year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, they can switch to your competitor every month.
Yeah. Well, it's like the software. So the subscription model is really done well for software, and it's starting to bleed into everything else, right? I mean, subscription.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, incredible. Yeah, in my newsletter, the Digigram, which you can sign up for on gertchristen.org. I've actually talked about this in the last few newsletters, and I used the term which I didn't invent, but I think it fits beautifully. It's XaaS. It's everything as a service now.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about it when we talk about the Juicero juice machine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they tried, juice as a service.
Yeah.
In a way, that's what they wanted to do. Nespresso. Nespresso came up with the subscription for coffee. Juicero wanted to apply same principle to juice, and so in that sense, the attempt was legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
To see, is there a market for people to buy, the printer and cartridge model for drinks or juices? Could you, instead of having to buy a bottle of orange juice, the same what Nespresso did, you can switch juice from every glass to the next. You don't have to drink the whole carton. You can just drink one glass, and then if 2 hours later you want to have watermelon juice, there you go. You can have that. So in this sense, it was legitimate, and you're absolutely right. I think with everything as a service, machines that order their own parts, I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, from our food to our software, to manufacturing, to coffee, to an incredible number of things have now become virtualized and become services. So in a way, check the box. We now know how to do this. Really, and this was a lot of growth and innovation the last 10, 15 years. The technology is all there now. I'm just very curious now, what is going to be the next big wave of all these companies? Because many of the companies we mentioned today, for me, they were all part of this wave. Something as a service, mostly software, and now going out into everything else. So what is the next big thing is in a way,
Well, I think personally, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I think the next big thing is sort of like a refinement of the subscription model. Because if you think about the subscription model, it's got a really high turnover, right? If you look at the turnover numbers in subscriptions, there's a lot of cancellations, month over month. And I think the reason why that is because things keep coming, but they just come on a timed basis, right? There's nothing to say, there's no sensor or indicator that says, oh, wait a minute, the customer now wants it, as opposed to, I'm just gonna send it every month, right? It's like Dollar Shave Club, right? So Dollar Shave Club, you get more razors every month. And then COVID happens and everyone's at home and they're not shaving. So they're still getting razors piling up. So if there was some way for the subscription service to detect, okay, Chris needs more blades this month, or he doesn't need more blades this month, and then just sort of pause it, or automatically pause it, or automatically send more, or whatever. If there was some way it could sense that and determine, let's tune the subscription up or down based on what he's doing. So I think that's kind of like the next step, and we could use sensors and IoT devices and all sorts of things that will actually get into the home and go, wait a minute, does he really need more of these? Well, let's send him an email saying, hey, how about we pause? You still have some blades left over. We'll send it to you halfway through the next month. How do you think of that? And if you do it smart enough, then things will appear when you need them, which I think is sort of like the next step in the subscription model, is that things will just appear when you need them as opposed to them appearing on a regular basis. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree with you. And the machine ordering its own spare parts is the example I used in an industrial context. You just made the example for how Dollar Shave Club, for a consumer service, if you want. Yeah, that's totally what can happen, and the dream of that we've had, and I already heard it when I was at Nokia, 15 years ago, the fridge that fills itself.
Mm-hmm.
The fridge or the kitchen or the home that knows that now you just used up the last milk, so I'm going to reorder milk, and then tonight a little robot is going to show up in front of your door, or even better, a little robot is going to show up and from the outside of your house, through the wall, stock your fridge, so it doesn't even have to come in. And the next morning you get up, the fridge is full again, kind of a open sesame kind of thing. So sensors, IoT is there, and I would go one step further. I find it extremely interesting, some of the capabilities of blockchain. Namely, in this way, you could automate even more, because it's nothing else than automation that we're talking about. The Dollar Shave Club is an automation of a problem that men have. I'm one of them. I use blades to shave, and only notice that I should get a new blades when I cut myself or get irritated skin. So Dollar Shave Club automated for lazy men like me who don't notice that they have a problem.
See, what they need to do is put a sensor. They need to put a sensor in the blade so they can see that, oh, you're being cut. Oh, okay, time to ship more blades.
Or maybe the mirror in my bathroom should say, oh, he's getting these red dots. We should change the razor for him, so it doesn't have to do that. So I think it's the next thing. I think is then also automating a little bit more, maybe a little bit more complex transactions, automating the commerce thing around it. So, and I find, for instance, blockchain that you can combine beautifully with sensors, IoT sensors, and the logistics, so different parties that don't know each other or don't trust each other. Blockchain is beautiful for that, because you always have this audit trail. And finally, the electronic contracts, where already at the beginning of a transaction you can put all the conditions that must happen for this contract to be complete, and when I all get written to the blockchain. When it's complete, the payment is released automatically, instantly, with no paperwork, no stamps, no checks, no customs, and so on. So I think next is combining all of these things together to automate even more, automate the back end.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that there's so much automation that we could still be doing that's not happening yet. And it's just manual labor that somebody's got to do. And we got to go there. So if you were to start up a startup today, what field would you do it in?
I would do it in AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's another field that we talk about. Huh?
What makes you so excited about AI? Why do you think that's the hot place to go?
Okay, so AI is now, computing power has finally caught up with maths. The math, as I understand it, of artificial intelligence is not new. It's about 30 or 40 years old, but we never had the computing power to crunch the numbers in massive numbers. But now it's here, and it's possible. And so I would create and there's a lot of AI companies that do nothing else but image recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would look at where are there lots and lots of images that need to be analyzed. And one example is, for instance, X-rays. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a radiologist, you have a 10-year-long education, which which costs you, your parents, or the government, a million or close to a million. I think it costs to train a doctor.
Wow, that's insane.
It's insane. Yeah, it's a 10 years education. Um, to do what at the end with your diploma? You're going to sit in front of a computer screen and you're going to look at one X-ray scan after another. And I bet you that 80% of them are completely obvious what's going on. If it's a good diagnosis or it's a bad diagnosis. I'm quite sure that there must be an 80-20, that there is an 80-20 rule there for an experienced radiologist. But really with that high education and valuable know-how, you should only really have to spend your own time, a human being's time, or that human being's time, on really the 20%. The rest I'm sure you can train an AI to recognize if this is, whatever it is, if this is a broken bone or not a broken bone, or this is a cancer or not a cancer. Things
and if you think about it,
you can't see in X-rays, but
and if you think about it, the computers may even be able to do better diagnosis on things, because they have a higher resolution picture of what's going on, or they can bring in all sorts of data points that the radiologist may not know about. I mean, that's the thing about, I think that's the key thing that will differentiate AI from humans, is that we have to leverage their power to be better than a human to be able to decision make, right? Because we as humans can't know everything, but AIs can know a hell of a lot more than we do. So we just need to leverage that.
You're making a very good point. Yes, and I completely agree with you. And I would say on top of that, it's kind of built into neuronal networks that they learn continuously. Whereas, how does a radiologist doctor learn today? He in his spare time, he tries to keep up with publications. He tries to keep up with his colleagues by going to conferences or reading material that maybe his vendors sent him, or his hospital, or his whatever his alumni organization sends him. So he can't do it on the job permanently, but neural networks, which is your point, they can actually, while they do it, they learn it. And if you maybe link them together, then they can learn from each other at the same time.
Absolutely. So we're running out of time. So I just wanted to start at and why don't you tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you if they want to continue the conversation?
Yeah, I would love that. You can get in touch with me at my website, gertchristen.org. So Gert is my first name, last name Christen, Christen. You can get in touch with me there, or next time you're at the intersection or the coffee shop interviewing people, look for me and interview me.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. I'll just send me your bio and other information. I'll put them in the links down below so people can go directly to those. All right. Thank you so much. It was a great conversation. Love talking to you.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thanks a lot.
Right. Thanks.